Hello and welcome. 2D Gamer back again. I used to do a weekly update of games I was currently playing, but that was when I had a lot more time on my hands. So instead I decided to just sum it up at the end of each month. I'm not even sure how many of my old Gaming Week videos are even still up, because I've pulled most of them down thanks to the copyright hounds. This month I was really busy in the real world, so I didn't have a lot of time to game, nor did I get to play particularly far into any of the games I played. I recently reacquired a PS2, and I've been brainstorming for my next video, trying to narrow down ideas, and as such, I pretty much only played my PS2 this month. And with that being said, here are the games I played the most. Fallout. Brotherhood of Steel. Brotherhood of Steel is sort of the red-headed stepchild of the Fallout franchise. When it hit, PC Fallout fans hated it because, like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, it took concepts of the PC original and then, quote, unquote, consoled them up. Or in other words, it watered down the deeper elements of the game for a more shallow experience, but one with more mainstream appeal. To be honest, I've still yet to get around to the original Fallout games on the PC. But in today's gaming world, where the Fallout name is now associated with the first-person RPG, maybe Brotherhood of Steel can be cut some slack. When the game released, I remember it getting average to low scores. In fact, I would say too low of scores. If you like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, Champions of Norath, or any of the other similar hack-and-slash RPGs on the PS2, then this is another worthy adventure. It even runs on the Snowblind engine which powers Dark Alliance and a multitude of other games. Though I had a previous save in the game, I started over this month, but have yet to get very far in the game again. Gauntlet. Dark Legacy. Dark Legacy plays like an expanded version of Gauntlet Legends. It has all the levels of Legends, with more added. This is a game that took me 11 years of looking to finally find on the PS2. I previously owned Legends on the N64. To best describe Dark Legacy, you would have to think of an arcade version of a hack-and-slash RPG, like the previously shown Fallout, but with a lot more simplified leveling system and the ability to play with 4 people. The simplified gameplay is a sign of its arcade gaming roots, where simple and quick fun take precedent over deeper RPG elements. This is another one that scored too low in mainstream reviews. However, you have to remember that at the time of its release, Legends was already around 3 years old in the arcades, with subsequent releases to the N64, PS1, and Dreamcast in the years that followed. So I'm guessing that they scored it so low because they were already burnt out of the gameplay. However, if you've rested from this series for over a decade, it may be time to come back and enjoy it once again with a couple of friends. This is a perfect game night game for people who are tired of shooting their buds in first-person shooters. I didn't get too far into the game this month. I recently played through it, so I started over again. Dark Legacy was also later ported to the GameCube and Xbox, but I'm not sure what additions were added aside from sharper graphics. Hydro Thunder. This is the only non-PS2 game I played this month. I found this one at a local thrift shop for a whopping price of $1. And considering that this is a port of a game to the weakest console at the time, it's still a really fun and playable port. I can't really comment on how well it stacks up to the arcade original, because I've never spent much time with the original arcade version. I do own it via Midway Arcade Treasures 2 on the PS2. As far as ports go, this is no doubt the least impressive port of the game. However, it's still perfectly playable and perfectly fun. As far as comparing it to other similar PS1 games, I can't comment because, having not played Turboprop Racing or VR Sports Powerboat Racing on the PS1, I honestly don't know how well it stacks up. However, it's still a fun game, but I can only recommend the PS1 port to PS1 collectors. Jak and Daxter. I remember an old magazine interview from Jason Rubin where he described Jak and Daxter as a second-generation game with a third-generation graphics engine. Naughty Dog has always been one of the most talented development teams out there, and being a second-party developer to Sony meant that they could put all their efforts into pushing the, at the time, new PS2 hardware to places that other developers with a multi-console focus had neither the time nor the money to do. The original Jak and Daxter will always be my personal favorite game in the series, and it was also the first platformer that I really took an interest in, having previously ignored almost the entire genre on the PS1 and N64, hence why there's no Spyro footage on my old P100 PS1 games video. To me, Jak and Daxter represents a sort of a new era of fluidity for platformers. The second generation of platformers fixed a lot of the problems that I previously associated with the genre, mainly horrendous camera angles, control issues, and far too much collecting for collecting's sake. Jak streamlined everything about the genre. Fluid controls and animations, a large, seamless world that blends games like Mario and Zelda together, and most importantly, a vastly superior camera system that gave players complete control. Surprising considering Crash Bandicoot's fixed camera system. Naughty Dog outdid themselves with this one, and ushered in a new generation of platformers the right way, even if I'm still not a fan of the Jak Theft Auto turn that Jak 2 and 3 took. However, Jak and Daxter is still easily one of the best platformers on the PS2, and was followed by other amazing efforts by teams like Insomniac and Sucker Punch. In my personal opinion, the PS2 easily has the greatest collection of platformer games of any console since the 3D era began. And yes, I am taking Sunshine and Galaxy into account with that one. As with the previous games this month, I didn't get too far into this one. However, this is one of those games that I always like to have a save up and running for, so I can jump in and enjoy at my leisure. Killzone. This is another game that I like keeping a save for on my memory card. That way I can skip to my favorite levels in the game. Initially and unfairly hyped as a Halo killer for the PS2, the final product didn't live up to that hype by a long shot. However, taken on its own, you have a first-person shooter that is enjoyable, but flawed due to its many bugs. The consensus at the time of its release was that Guerrilla just tried too much for the PS2 system to handle graphically. However, taking other PS2 shooters like Black and Area 51 into account, which both outdo Killzone graphically, I have a different theory as to why the game was so buggy. If a game is going to be hyped as a Halo killer, then it had better beat Halo 2 to the market to try and steal some of its thunder. In other words, Killzone was rushed out the door to beat Halo 2 to the market, which resulted in the release of an unfinished game. This one needed more time in development. As it stands, bugs and all, I have still always enjoyed this game. It has a unique storyline, and I love the washed-out, war-torn atmosphere in the game. The washed-out colors may be a means of hiding the PS2's hardware limitation, but it also adds to the atmosphere. This month I pretty much just skipped around Killzone's levels, not really putting a full playthrough in, but sometimes you just want to pick and choose what parts you want to play. The Mark of Kri. I recently showed this one off in an account update video, and I honestly cannot recommend this one enough. The way I initially heard this one described as is Disney meets Conan the Barbarian, as in, its art direction looks a lot like a Disney movie, but its bloody gameplay gives it its mature rating. Kri has its own unique style, and some really well thought out game design. As you can see from this footage, the game emphasizes stealth most of the time. However, if you want to, you can also run through fighting and killing everything in your path, which is the harder option. The combat system, designed to allow you to target and attack multiple enemies who surround your main character, Rao, may not feel as free and dynamic as the combat in games like God of War, but it still does its job quite well.
Of the Mesa. The story of an oracle intrigued him. Why would someone not want him to know his destiny?
I also like how the story elements of the game are told through storyboard drawings that are drawn in front of your eyes. It's definitely a unique touch to the game. This month, I only had time to get slightly further in the game than I was in my previous video, but I still really enjoyed my time with this one. Smugglers Run. Those familiar with the PS2's launch know all about this one. Some of you are probably still mad at this game 14 years later. Smugglers Run, aside from being a great showpiece for what the PS2 was capable of at launch, is a mission-based driving game, the kind of which that were popular prior to Grand Theft Auto 3's release, where driving missions became just part of the overall design. This style of play was made popular by games like Driver on the PS1. And like Driver, Smugglers Run starts out pretty easy, but then amps up the difficulty tremendously. This is a game that will frustrate you to no end, and yet keep you coming back for more. Its, at times, unforgiving gameplay doesn't trounce the fun. The final missions in the game are incredibly unforgiving. I didn't play too far into this one this month. I sort of got to my first difficult part, and then I rage quit. Stuntman. Speaking of Driver, speaking of unforgiving, when Reflections, the developers of Driver on the PS1, started their first PS2 project, gamers took notice. As unforgiving as Smugglers Run can be, Stuntman demands near perfection in its runs. One mistake and it's cut, retake. This game can be quite satisfying when you finally complete each scene, but its unforgiving nature means you will spend more time looking at the load screens than playing the game. It can get a bit tedious at times, but it's still worth a look for gamers looking for a good driving challenge. And there you have it. That sums up pretty much my entire month of September 2014 as far as gaming is concerned. I'll try and keep these videos going, but you never know, 'cause I ain't never got no time. Anyway, and with that I will leave you with just this one parting thing. I will call it the gem of the month, and the gem of the month this month is Project Eden. Core Design is one of those developers that didn't seem to make the transition from PS1 to PS2 particularly gracefully. The once celebrated Tomb Raider developer never quite adjusted, releasing a small amount of games before going under after Angel of Darkness bombed. Of the games they did release, like Hurdy-Gurdy, Thunderstrike, Operation Phoenix, and Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness, I would say that Project Eden was their best release. Eden is a puzzle-heavy squad-based third-person shooter. Taking a cue from developing Tomb Raider, Core riddled the game with puzzles and put everything else on the back burner. Each of the 4 characters has their own specialities to add to the puzzle-solving mix. Minoku hacks, Andre repairs things like broken switches, Amber, the cyborg, can go through hazardous environments, and Carter leads, I guess. Throughout the game you also get various gadgets, like an RC car, that help you solve the tough puzzles. This is a game that requires quite a bit of thought. The shooting elements may lack excitement, but the demanding puzzles and good atmosphere are the best parts of the game. Also, if you get tired of racking your brain alone, you can play the campaign with 3 other friends as well. And there's also a good variety of multiplayer modes to unlock, from straight up deathmatch to RC car races. Eden isn't for everyone. Action gamers will be a bit bored with this one. But for open-minded gamers looking for a good puzzle challenge and a good game to play with friends, this game is definitely worth a look. Project Eden is also available on the PC.